This is the 8-9 combo. I'm Brett McKay, and I need to tread carefully this week around my fragile co-host, Harry Jones. Hello, mate. We're going to talk about We're going to talk about URC later. Are you okay?
How's it, Brett? I'm always okay. I recover. Okay, I can recover well. I do want to also point out that over the weekend, I was buoyed, and I was actually really blown away by how closely resembling bedroom talk, sex talk, it is when you hear the referee talk to front rows in the Premiership Final. Here's a collection of what the referee told those front rows.
Yeah,
we need space. I've seen some bad pictures. Stabilize before you push. Do you want a reward? Be flat and push straight. Elbow up, too high, too early. That sounds like 40% of my university days sex life chatter. I'm telling you. Also, I will say, I really do like Hey Jude sung along instead of Sweet Caroline.
Now tell me, what was all that about? That was the Bath supporters doing that.
Yeah, and it just sounded really good as a sing-along. It just took over the whole stadium. It sounded good. I was like, why don't we just do that? Can we just draw a line through the Neil Diamond song? I don't know.
If we do have any Bath supporters in the house, get in touch and you can tell us why that is. But I noticed it as well. This is cool. This is different. But,
good.
That's all right. That's all right. It's episode 18 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast, all thanks to the Sports Social Podcast Network, and available across all the pod platforms, all over the pod world. And we'd love you to like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, share, etc., etc. Let's rip it out down the short side for another week, mate, with cheers and jeers to kick things off. And it's, for me, the cheers this week was just the Premiership Final itself. Just one of the best games of non-international rugby I've seen in years. It was a game that was still in dispute until maybe the 80th minute, and which either Northampton or Bath could have won with several opportunities before that. And furthermore, it was a game that kind of rubbished the whole red cards ruin games argument, because I had to remind myself several times during the second half that this is 15-14 and Bath were just not playing like they were a man down. They could well have won that game and would have deserved to do so.
Yeah, this is not restaurant reviews, guys. It's like we have some kind of very prissy view of every game. The quality of the ball and play. Come on. It's interesting to see a team work out a player down. It's interesting. It literally ties into my jeers, by the way, because how Bath did it was they yanked off my favorite number 8 in the Premiership, Alfie Barbary. It's like, oh no, the 9 is off, the 8 is off. Like, take the 9 off. No, but I understand the point. He's a luxury. He's a carrier.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting to see if you can make it tighter. I think it's interesting to see if you can, just because one person's missing in like 29 players are still in the field, there's not that much space. So it's not like it's obvious, inevitable that the team with one more player will always find an overlap and perfect space. It also brings up the idea that the team that's down one man often actually plays a little bit harder. and the team with one up sort of like cuts corners and goes, oh, we're just going to do crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When it happened, when the card came out, I thought, all right, this will be interesting. This will be, the whole argument as to whether the 20-minute red card is a good thing or a bad thing will swing on how this game goes. And at the end of it, I sort of thought, it's probably not helping the 20 minutes. I think you much at all.
It was a strong exhibit for it. By the way, that final play, the rip, the guy's knee was down, so another ref could have already called him down. Then he ripped it, the ball went and hit one of his own players, accidental offsides, penalty.
Yes.
That thing could have been completely different.
Absolutely.
At the very least, like you said, it was up in the balance.
And that's not at all to suggest that Northampton didn't deserve it, because they definitely did. It was one of those games where you could have flipped a coin several times in the last 5 minutes, and the winner would have been deserving either way. It was a phenomenal game.
Listen, all the stats support that if the teams are relatively well, if they're pretty much equal and a card happens, it's not that big a shift.
No.
The part of the stats get thrown off because most of the time there are a bigger difference between the teams already. Yeah. And then, of course, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah. You mentioned ball in play before. I had a little interaction with Jared Wright from Rugby Bits over the weekend, and he actually said that the official stats showed that ball in play was actually I can't remember the figure he had, but it was surprisingly low.
29 minutes, yeah.
It was surprisingly low. And it didn't feel like that, because it just felt like the game just went. I said to him this is one of those games where you lost time in chunks. Like you look up and you've gone, oh, it's 12 minutes since I last looked. It's 20 minutes since I last looked. And the halves just disappeared. But yeah, a phenomenal game. We will get into the details a little bit later, but just a fantastic.
I do have one amazing Gier, and it's about a 9. Camille, I mean, he's a kind of a 10 too. Camille Lopez, who plays for Bayonne,
I've seen
contributed
this.
one of the worst tackle attempts one has ever seen on Nakarawa. Now, to be fair, it's not that fun to tackle the man anyway, coming down the tram line, steaming at you. But what he does is a modified, like pole vault, kind of what's those like pommel horse leapfrog efforts where he literally jumps and then kind of in a very strange
tries to push
like a Cirque du Soleil gymnast who's drunk, and he kind of just jumps and kind of pats him on the back as he goes by.
Head to the 8-9 Twitter. We'll share it through that. It is phenomenal. I saw it described as him making a business decision, which just seemed perfect. We're really looking forward to this week's guest, another returning guest who we've had on several times in the past, and who we are loving the joy that he's taking out of winding up Crusaders supporters over the last week or so. He's up next, and he's up right now. The Super Rugby Pacific semi-finals await us on either side of the Tasman, and that leaves everyone united in the hope that the Blues choke after being one of the dominant teams this season. And it also is the perfect time for us to hand out another 8-9 debut this week to Radio New Zealand sports writer and author Jamie Wall. Hello, mate. Welcome back. How you doing?
Jamie.
Hey, boys. No, good to be back. Hope you guys well.
No, we're well. We're good. You are taking a lot of joy out of winding up Crusaders supporters.
Yeah, well, it's a bit easy, eh? Like, I need to kind of really find something harder to do with my time. But I mean, the story of the Crusaders season has been, it's quite unfathomable, really. Like just how quickly
it's been extraordinary.
It's fallen. And yeah, okay, I'm from a region that has a rivalry with the Crusaders, and even though you're a journalist, it is kind of hard to take off and look at it objectively, which I think is actually colouring a lot of people's perceptions of just how to analyse what's gone on this year. And I think that once we sort of get a bit of time has passed, maybe towards the end of the year, and we can actually have a good look at what's gone on, because I still think the last chapter of the season Crusaders hasn't been written yet, and we can have a really good look at what's gone on and how quickly things have gone from being so successful to the complete opposite. And one of the interesting things about this, so quickly, and one of the interesting things about this year, I think that a lot of people might be interested to know is that the Blues and the Crusaders both started out in the same spot at the start of the year. They'd brought in 2 veteran coaches, Vern Cotter and Rob Penny, and they had talented squads. They'd lost key players, both, but there was a lot of expectations on both of them. And starting from almost the exact same spot, they just couldn't have ended up in different places, like really. And I just wonder, what's happened? What have the Blues done that the Crusaders haven't? And what have the Crusaders done that the Blues haven't to end up where we are?
Yeah,
I get tired of the sort of inevitability argument. They get people point back and go, "Oh, there was no cohesion, therefore." I'm like, none of that's really written in the stars. Also, I think you probably agree with this. It's fun to have dynasties, and also it's kind of fun to see dynasties fall. Like that's actually the juicy part. And what I would suggest, since you're falsely accused by many people in the Republic of adopting a former All Black name to cast shade on another team, why don't you invent an alter ego account that's called Israel Dagwood or something like that, like a derivation of Izzy, and then you just continue your incredibly masterfully trolling ways against the Crusaders. I think that'd be a brilliant idea.
Well, why would I use an alter ego? Well, it's working fine the way it is.
It's very true. It's very true. I feel like we need to address this though, mate. Can we categorically deny that you are in fact not Ben Smith from RugbyPass?
No, I'm not. I don't know where that's come from.
That was very tricky. He said no. He said I cannot categorically deny. He said no. I was like, wait, now it's deepening.
I mean, sorry. Yes, I didn't. I can categorically deny it.
Okay, all right. Now I'm glad we got to.
But I just think I don't know where that's come from. I really don't. It's very annoying because Ben, I know Ben, like he's a real guy.
Yes.
He is a real person. He's not an alter ego of anyone, especially me. If you want to ask him about why he loves winding up Springbok fans, I think I can kind of speak on his behalf and say, again, it's because it's really easy. You don't need he enjoys posting over here in New Zealand. It's kind of funny because I do the same thing. I'll just say something like when I'm about to go to bed, and then wake up in the morning, and everyone in the Northern Hemisphere has just reacted to it, and it's just kind of fun to wake up. I think he does the same thing. I know he finds it fun. I don't agree with everything he says, but you can't, if you want him to stop. If anyone's listening who thinks he's a troll and hates what he does, just stop reacting to him. It's that easy.
Yes.
Yeah, but on that, so like banter and real rivalries are really the key to sport. Like it's actually like what's all based on. So the ability to engage like that. I know you take great glee and pleasure in some of that stuff, but it's always good fun to me. I think you like the rivalries, you respect the rivalries. But
absolutely.
Like in Super Rugby, I kind of think that's a little bit of what's missing. I think the Kiwis really do kind of hate each other, right? Like the Chiefs draw a lot of fire and the Crusaders. But sometimes I wonder if there's enough true, I don't know, enmity in Super Rugby. Like, does it matter enough?
That's a great point because it's something that we've talked about a lot about. Okay, well, how obviously the crowds aren't as good as they used to be, with a couple of key exceptions of some big rivalry games. But like, how do we have that rivalry going all the time? I remember when Super Rugby Super 12 first started, I would have said that the Hurricanes' biggest rivals were the Brumbies, actually, because that was the team that the Hurricanes had the biggest, and it was the builders, the Battle of the Capitals sort of thing, and so it's not impossible, to make that happen. I just think that a lot of the marketing that's gone around it and a lot of the dialogue has been flattened out and sanitized quite a bit. And I mean, it's a pretty long conversation to be had, but I completely agree with you that like stoking rivalries is what other sports have massively over rugby, especially football, where it's not just seen as banter; it's seen as act like that's how you be a fan. And I think rugby's kind of perception of itself is very, that it's somehow a sport for higher-minded people than others is not helping that, because as soon as you do say stuff like that, you get a whole bunch of flogs from the UK telling you not to be like a football fan, and you're like, no, but I like football. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I like football culture. I like how they have rivalries. I want to be able to say like, I want my team to win because I just literally hate the other team, and it's there. I mean, like it literally is there with the Hurricanes and the Crusaders and the Chiefs.
And then we actually saw it. We saw it in the Premiership Final there on the weekend, mate. You could see the groups of supporters. You could see the blue, black, and white. You could see the green and black and gold in the stands. Whereas, I don't know, in Super Rugby, just the colours aren't as prominent. And maybe that's because everyone's under black puffer jackets. I don't know. Yeah,
well, there is that. There is that. New Zealand's got its national uniform that
It's the Canberra uniform too. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, and I did think about you, Jamie, because you actually suggested a more entertaining way to have someone sit out in the naughty chair, waiting for the yellow to be yellow or red, like a real dramatic, like they disappear in a trapdoor. And so the Chicago, what are they called? The dogs.
That's right.
Now you sit in a doghouse. Like if you get a yellow card, you sit in the doghouse. I think that's fun. Why are we so staid and conservative? Like football. To your point, football fans. I went to one at Anfield one time. I went to Old Trafford. They have songs made up for the opposing players that are really unbelievably funny and risque, and they do it on cue. And there's no one going, "Oh, that's not very respectful." I mean, everyone's having a good time.
No, because everyone's joining in.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's rugby's main problem. Too much respect.
Yeah. It doesn't allow the players to become personae, and their profiles are small. It affects the money they make. I don't even understand it, actually. This whole idea of we must be hushed like a cathedral when you're kicking. Like, what is that?
So what I'm hearing is that we need to have flash something up on the screen that says "Stop respecting the kicker."
Well,
who cares, right?
Yeah. I for me as a New Zealander, I don't know what it's like where you guys are from, but booing the kicker is literally like the first thing we learnt to do when we it's the one disrespectful thing that New Zealand does better than anyone else. It's the one thing that'll get a rugby crowd fired up is when a guy's lining up a shot at goal. So I've never understood the respect the kicker thing. I never have. It doesn't make any sense, because if you really want to respect the kicker, tell your team to not try and charge it down. How about that?
There you go. But equally, you know where the bar is, because you don't go as far as shining lasers in kickers' eyes.
No, sure, that's kind of bush league. I just think a song that's well picked. If you want to pick a really funny song about a kicker picking on his worst, self-esteem point, I think that's funny.
It's good.
I completely agree.
Yeah, good. Four quarterfinals played over the weekend, mate. Four completely unsurprising winners. I think we'd have to agree. What were your main takeaways from the quarters?
Didn't really learn much about the teams that won that I didn't already know before, especially the Blues. That one went completely according to script. I think probably the team that came out of them looking the best was the Chiefs.
Yeah,
because that was the one. I mean, the Reds actually had a winning record against them over the last 2 seasons going into that game. And given that the Reds have been capable of playing really good rugby, in fact, I'd say that they're up there with the best teams to watch in the comp. But their lack of consistency cost them in the end. Had they not dropped games to like Moana Pacifica, then they could have been hosting that game themselves. So a disappointing way for them to go out. And again, with the Hurricanes, that one just went the way it should have gone, and they'll just be happy that they haven't picked up any injuries, because the one thing for the Blues out of that is that they have lost Patrick Tuipulotu. Which is going to be quite a big dent in their title hopes. I don't think it's not like fatal or anything, and they did manage to get by without him at the start of the season when he'd broken his jaw. But they're locking stocks.
He made a difference when he came back.
Yeah, absolutely. And their locking stocks are what you call promising rather than established behind him. There was that, and then again, with the Brumbies. Yeah, that's about right. I think the Highlanders have definitely probably outstayed their welcome in the competition anyway. So we got the semi-finals that we all thought we were going to get.
I think I
was
you're
excited
right.
to chat with you, Jamie, about the 3 North Island teams. I'd actually invented this Harry Index, which Brett pours scorn on, but I just noticed that the Blues rugby team actually endorsed it. And so, partly because they're number 4 in the world. So I have Hurricanes number 3 in the world, Blues number 4, and Chiefs number 6, because I don't like the fact that it's not really a cross league, rating. And I think those 3 Kiwi teams are actually really superb, but they're all different. What do you think about how different these 3 teams actually play? The Chiefs kind of did clinical finishing. They made 223 tackles, and they won the turnover battle. And then the Canes had 60% ball, which was unusual. Only 6 penalties, and only made 84 tackles. So it's kind of they're clashing into each other, and it's interesting to see how they're going to play this out.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. I mean, I think the one thing that the Hurricanes will be confident about is obviously they've beaten the Chiefs twice this year, which is for New Zealand rugby fans the only statistic that actually counts for anything. But it is interesting what you said, that both teams obviously like to hang on to the ball, and if one team can just simply control possession, they're going to go a long way towards winning this game. I think probably the last time they played, it felt more like a bit of a shadowboxing exercise. Neither team really came out of their shell with their match in Hamilton. So the one I would probably more look back to was the match from earlier in the season in Wellington, where it was very evenly matched before the Hurricanes just came out and absolutely blew them away in the last 20 minutes or so. So
that was the first game the Chiefs lost all year?
Yes. Oh, no, second, because they'd lost to the Reds as well.
Had to, yeah.
Which one of those teams do you think can go a little bit higher? Which one has that little bit of a higher ceiling to go to in knockout?
Yeah, good question. I'd probably say the Hurricanes, because I think the Chiefs on Friday was about as good as they can.
Those finishing were like out of this world. There were 3 tries I just couldn't even believe they scored on the tip.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, I'll say that. Don't get me wrong, they're great tries, but the one that Samasoni Takiaho scored was a complete fluke. Like,
Right.
you didn't,
Yes.
you wouldn't be able to do that if you tried it again 100 times.
No,
Exactly.
But yes, they did certainly create some fantastic chances. And I mean, they deserved the try. But I just think with the Hurricanes, just on the fact that their scrum has been so good, and their line out as well, and they've got Asafo Amoa back, and he's made a big difference. It's just that it's probably just going to come down to a few key penalties that the Hurricanes can win off the scrum. You know, they can target that area, and so that's why I'm fairly hopeful of a Hurricanes win just on that basis. But then again, being a Hurricanes fan, I'm not going to believe anything until they actually do it.
fair.
You see a classic physical struggle derby, not the 7 tries, 6 tries kind of stuff, right? And just a proper smash up.
Good question.
It could be both. You know, like it could actually still be really physical and still be 7 tries to 6.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it's just got it has a kind of a real shootout kind of feel to it, just given how many good players are, you know, can get the ball in their hands in this game. You know, you look at both backlines, and I mean, you know, that's a Hurricanes backline that's leaving Kenny Naholo out, and you know, that guy's ready for Test rugby right now.
Equally, the Chiefs are leaving Quinn Tupaia on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you just look at the benches and you go, well, that's how good these starting teams are. It's just going to be a really entertaining game, hopefully.
Yeah, it was interesting that I said, Jamie, in amongst our chat group, which Harry is part of, that I thought that was the Chiefs' best performance probably since the first month of the year when they were running undefeated with the Hurricanes, and at that point we'd almost still forgotten about the Hurricanes. Everyone was talking about the Chiefs. It was their competition to lose and all that. And this was their most clinical performance since then, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you remember right back to before the season started, you know, everyone was saying, "Oh, just give the Chiefs the title now." Like if you look at their squad, and because they'd had the least disruption, and because also, and this sort of goes back to what we were talking about before around coaching, is that they have a coach in Clayton McMillan who is completely committed to this cause. You know, like he's definitely a guy who can step up to another level, but he's made absolutely no sign of wanting to go anywhere. And I think that for an organisation like a Super Rugby team to have a coach who's just completely committed to the cause makes a massive difference. And I think it's what's made a massive difference to the Blues and also at the Hurricanes as well. Because I mean they've got a guy in there who hadn't even coached 15s before coming in. And I think that if you look at the past few years, you had this situation with Scott Robertson, Leo McDonald, with Jason Holland, who'd already figured out what they were going to do next. And so that's why,
that's a good point.
Last season, especially being around the Blues a lot, as soon as that all got confirmed, Leo McDonald his demeanour changed quite considerably, and it was quite obvious to see. Obviously, it didn't do the Crusaders any harm, but it was. I think that the New Zealand rugby team, their Super Rugby teams, have benefited immensely from having a more committed coaching staff, and that's no slight on the guys of before, because of course that's what they were trying to do, but at the same time I think it does say a lot about the state of the competition or the state of domestic rugby when a guy would rather go and be an assistant coach at a national team than be a head coach of a top domestic team. And I think that's something that rugby, not just in New Zealand, just everywhere, kind of has to deal with, because I don't think you'd really find that in another sport.
No, that's a good point.
It does kind of speak a lot to the rugby coaching environment and how it's I don't want, what's the right word, like not devaluing, but just kind of keeping domestic competitions in their place by having Test rugby just held to that much higher regard by the people coaching it.
Domestic rugby can't be seen just as a pathway. It needs to be able to stand alone by its own volition, and the Vern Cotter effect on the Blues has been really interesting to watch, because suddenly they've gone from this team that's really dangerous and can score from anywhere, and you've always got to be wary of them, to suddenly now they've got a bit of set piece starched about them. They've actually got a little bit of structure just to add to the polish, and now they are genuinely one of the best provincial franchise club sides in the professional world. They're an extraordinary team. And my surprise about the Blues on the weekend actually is that they just kind of did enough to keep the Drua at arm's reach, out of arm's reach, I think.
Yeah, they're the fourth best team in the world, Brett. I know that's been established, but no, their set pieces are so good. They win the set piece almost every weekend. I think they did dominate that thing. I mean, 5-1 tries, they had 60% of the field. I think
they dominated. What I actually
like
mean
canter. They just kind of like relaxed.
They did it. Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. They looked like they won that in third or fourth gear, whereas the Brumbies, speaking of gears, their whole thing coming out of halftime was the messaging was, guys, you're in fourth gear. You're going to need to find something more to not just to beat the Highlanders, but to beat the Blues next week. And you could see the Brumbies lift after halftime. Suddenly their set piece was better. They tightened things up around that. They went to their maul. They played a bit tighter up through the middle as well. And they scored 2 converted tries in that first 8 minutes after halftime, and the Highlanders were done after that point.
Yeah. So what do you guys worry about each team? Like for me, for the Blues, it's a little bit the injury issue, the depth issue.
Yeah.
For the Brumbies, it would be, I think they're losing the penalty count too much.
Brumbies scrum is still an issue, and scrum's been an issue for 6 weeks now. Yeah. Chiefs will be whether they can go to that level again, and the Hurricanes will be, if the Chiefs do that, can they actually work their way back into it and regain things?
Yeah, for me, it'd be can the Canes clean the Chiefs loosies and getting over the ball really well? What do you think, Jamie?
I think the Hurricanes' main worry is that they're the Hurricanes, and they're just have been the most underperforming team. You know, if you got you're a franchise that had Jonah Lomu, Christian Cullen, Ma Nonu, among many others, and couldn't win anything.
Yeah,
maybe Tano. Yeah, of course. There's a lot of guys I could add to that list. But I'm actually thinking, maybe just saying that out loud, I'm thinking maybe the fact that this year they came in without anything. I mean, you know, Geordie's there and things like that. But it's just kind of reminds me
as well.
Losing Cam Roger, but I mean, they had a pretty decent replacement who's coming, because I think TJ's playing the best rugby of his career right now. Like, I would be highly surprised if he didn't.
At the time, it was seen as a huge, you had all these things going. Hurricanes not really going to be something this year, and then look at them; they're so balanced.
Well, again, like I mentioned the Blues and the Crusaders having new coaches. I mean, who would have thought that Clark Laidlaw, a guy who's coached Sevens his whole life, comes in and is able to turn them into this absolute powerhouse, finishing first on the table? I don't think anyone predicted that at all. I think that the Hurricanes simply coming in the top 6 would have been seen as acceptable. But right now, you've got guys in that team who are knocking on the All Black door, and considering it's such a young, youthful group, I mean, this is a team that can stick together for the next 4 or 5 years and go again next year. And Artie's coming back,
and Artie Savea has already confirmed he's coming back. So it
is the Artie situation is quite interesting though, because really, like, that news of him recommitting was the first time anyone's really talked about him at all. Like, we're just, given how well Braden Yosei and Peter Lakai are playing, I think everyone's just great, there's the future
Yosei
right here.
Just seems untackleable first half. He's just mowing over people. He's not huge, but he's not tackled.
The great thing about those two is that they're completely living up to expectations as well. Like, there were a lot of eyes on them.
I think they're well beyond expectations.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I was, announced as the second coming of Artie Savea, and Yosei was, they were both age grade reps, and they came through the system, and I was just thinking, oh man, I hope these guys are as good as everyone's saying they are. Like, I don't want these guys to be bust, because they're coming into a very crowded picture. Obviously there's always a lot of good loose forwards in New Zealand, but it just feels like with those guys right now, it's just the possibilities are endless. Like, you could actually pick an All Black team tomorrow without Artie in it, and you could make a pretty good case for it, because
Absolutely.
by the time they start playing, he wouldn't have played in a good few months. And he's been playing blooming Japanese rugby. So
and there's some number 8s that have really played like proper number 8 rugby. And you could always look at Artie in a way and think of him still as his roots as a smaller loose forward. I mean, some of the number 8s in the Kiwi conference, not a conference, but the side, they've been absolutely stellar. I don't even know who I'd pick right now.
Yeah, it's a good question. A quick one, mate. Does you mentioned Braden Yosse, Peter Lackey, even Duplessis, Karifi? Now that we know that Artie is coming back, do one or a couple of those guys need to leave the Canes?
Yeah, good question. I mean, Duplessis Karifi is already kind of in a place where I'm like, man, what do you do with your career? Like, do you stay and you potentially just sit on the bench 4 out of every 5 games, or what do you do now? I know that all of those guys have re-signed. Not for what sports contracts are worth. But they've all re-signed. I think there's a bit of water to go under the bridge on that one, because only if you've got those 4 options, and then of course they've got women, Brad Shields and Devon Flanders as well, who are both playing the house down. So it feels like something potentially might have to happen with the others, but it'd be a shame to sort of break it all up.
Is the depth? So Brett, I think there was maybe Bernie was at the post match, and maybe it was Tom Wright talking about how hard it is to break in and to keep it. Like, you have no like Luke Reimer, Frost is on the bench sometimes. It's like the idea of there's not just first line; it's anybody's game, and you have to practice so hard.
That was where I actually saw that game being won. Was bench depth was going to be the deciding factor, because you looked at the Brumbies bench and they had guys like the two props, Nick Frost, the 3 backline replacements had all played 10 or 12 or 14 games this year, whereas on the Highlanders bench, their 3 backline players I think had debuted in the last month. And even their back row cover hadn't played much. So it just felt like that if this game got to the point where the benches started clearing, there was just no way that the Highlanders' depth was going to keep up. And that's the depth has been what has served the top New Zealand teams. So and will continue to.
Speaking of fluky finishing, how'd you like Muirhead's soccer skills out there on the wing?
Oh, phenomenal. And I interviewed him. I interviewed him on the game, on the field post-match, and I just said, all right, so this is your opportunity, talk to me, and talk us through it. And he said, I think when Noah looked up and put the kick through, he kind of forgot that he wasn't kicking to Corey Toole, and he would have expected that to be caught on the full. And he said, I've obviously got to concede a yard or 2 there, so I just had to work out a way of controlling it. And I said to him, it was the perfect football first touch.
Yeah, there was another one like that, by the way. I think, Jamie's been rumored to be James Lowe as well. By the way, he got one. He got one for Leinster. It was kind of similar, and he kind of just kind of kicked first touch, beautiful, kept it in.
Yeah,
I think when rugby players realize that they may or may not knock on or catch, they should really use more knee and midriff and foot. That's excellent. I love it.
Yep. And there's our break right there, which is good.
I'm going to say that Jamie's rumored to be everybody. Flood the zone, and then no one knows who he is.
Yeah, no one knows who he is. Exactly.
I'm everyone. I'm Kaiser Sose.
Semi-finals this weekend, Jamie. The Blues and the Brumbies were the last teams to win through on Saturday night, and their reward is to play 6 days later on Friday night, which was a curious piece of scheduling. I kind of understand. I can sort of see why we've got there, but still, Super Rugby just being Super Rugby again.
This is especially weird being in Auckland, because we know for a fact that the Blues avoid Friday night games because it's very difficult to get to Eden Park on traffic in Auckland is not great, and getting to Eden Park after work is not easy, especially for a 7 o'clock kickoff. So why they've agreed to this, I think I know why.
Have I got it right The Warriors are playing on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, the Warriors are playing on Saturday night at 7:30, so that was always going to be the case. And the Hurricanes have obviously finishing first, got to choose what time slot they played in on the weekend. So they've picked 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon, which again is a bit strange because that means that anyone involved in like senior club rugby won't be able to go unless they move all the times back.
And I'm sort of surprised that Sky said, "Yeah, let's do an afternoon game," because I was sort of thought they'd want Saturday night.
Well, I guess they want to. For them, it's kind of all good because now they've got clear air for the both semifinals and the Warriors on Saturday night, so they're not going to have to compete against each other for that one. I had the Blues and Warriors play at the same time. I mean, it has happened before. Like it's not unprecedented. And I mean, it just is a bit odd. I'm not complaining too much though. It means I can get these things over and done with probably a bit earlier than I normally would from a work point of view.
Earlier submission on Saturday evening is going to be no doubt.
So I mean, thanks I guess to the organisers for that. But
conversely, now the Brumbies will kick off in Auckland at 5:00 Australian time. The Raiders hosting North Queensland at Canberra Stadium at 6 p.m. So,
oh my god, so you can't win. And also, for a team with for a fixture that will have obviously the most attention of the Australian audience to be played,
5:00 on a Friday night.
On a Friday. Well, it's not even Friday night, is it? It's still Friday afternoon. No. It's like, that's just kind of one of those things where you're like, come on, who's in charge here? Like, what I can't get, and I've been talking about this all year, is that whoever's like running it, Super Rugby, is like, are they like massively religious? Do they not want teams playing on Sundays?
I don't know. And yet again, we've been talking all year about this commission's in place and there's a chairman there, but CEO doesn't start till July. And so we've gone through another season where we're still questioning who is actually running Super Rugby.
There's no one, guys. There's no one in charge. It's like an empty box.
It's an empty box. How do you see the Blues and Brumbies playing out, Jamie? How can the Brumbies topple the Blues?
Well, it's going to be difficult because the last time I saw them play, they were if the Brumbies play anywhere near as badly as they did that night, they're going to cop another hiding. And the Blues just so easily picked them apart in that game. And the one thing I remember the most about that game is that, and it's been quite symptomatic of the most of the Blues tries this year, is that they were just so patient with the way they went about things. They just moved into the 22 and just waited to pick their spots. And I think it was every try in the game, I think the Blues got 5. The origin point before the try, like the ruck, before it was like generally about 1 meter out from the line. And they'd worked themselves up into that position and just opened up a hole and gone for it. And to me, that showed a team that's playing the game at their pace and has forced the other team to play the game at their pace as well. That they can, they don't have to wait for some moment of brilliance in the middle of the field. They know exactly what they're doing, going straight up the middle. So the first order for the Brumbies is to sort of disrupt this set piece somehow. Patrick Tuipulotu's out, the lineout's right there. The teams have been able to exploit the Blues lineout a bit this year. So that's what I'd go for. And then just hold discipline. Don't give away any free meters. I don't think it's impossible for the Brumbies to do it. I'd like to think we're going to see a similar game to the semi-final last year, which was pretty exciting in the end.
Yeah.
But I think the Blues definitely still go in as big favourites.
They will, no doubt. It's going to be the semi-final 2 years ago was just and I rewatched the second half of it last night, Sunday night, and it was just a phenomenal contest that still you could argue should have gone the other way. Harry, that was 24-0 at halftime back in 2009 when the Blues just blew them away, and that was the big difference on the night.
Is Luke Reimer healthy?
Yeah, Yeah, he's been coming off the bench, and I think they've actually.
I would start him against the Blues. So the Blues are just playing very narrow. They're just coming at you. They're the tightest, narrowest team in the comp. They're doing that short tip passes. It's all quick. They resource the ruck really well. You've got to slow that down, or you're just going to be you just slowly, meekly, mildly lose. Or you can just say, I'll muck the ruck. I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to go to the edge of legality. I think you're already going to lose the penalty game anyway with the Blues. So I would say, let's get some money, worth. I would go get over the ball, maybe commit to make longer tackles, hold them up a little bit longer, but just don't play normal. Otherwise, I think it's going to go the normal way it should go. The lineout is one possibility. I think you guys maybe you could put 3 guys in the air, maybe
now
4.
that Charlie Cale's back playing. That's a good shout. Here's a little thing for you. Back in round 9, the Brumbies went to Auckland with that same back row: Valentini, Jerome Brown at 7, Charlie Cale at 8. The following week, when they slowed down the Hurricanes so successfully and actually ended their unbeaten start, Rory Scott was back at 7. Like, they actually put a proper on-ball fetcher there and made a difference. And I say that because Reimer's been playing off the bench fairly consistently all year, and they like his ability to come on and just cause breakdown havoc in the last half an hour. I think they've worked out that that's actually worth more to them than at the start of the game.
I get that, but I think the game could be lost already if they don't go in really well in the beginning.
Hurricanes Chiefs on Saturday afternoon. Jamie, is you expecting the Canes to run away with that?
I wouldn't say running away with it. I'd never be confident.
Yeah, I don't actually mean running away. Yeah.
Oh, well, I can never see them winning because if they play as well as they have been this year, I think they're the best team in the comp. Like, they haven't come first by accident. And like I said before, I think that they're going to need a big, decent section of the game where they have it all their own way, like they had in that first win against the Chiefs back earlier in the comp. I think being at home is going to help a lot. It's no coincidence that the Chiefs' losses this year have been away from home. And I just think there's enough there to exploit in the Chiefs' game plan that we saw in the last game, where the Hurricanes essentially manufactured a penalty to win that game, where they caught Luke Jacobson on the wrong side of the ruck, and you saw a couple of guys just jump in and just lock him in there. And it was a tough call, and there was a bit of debate about it, and I just think that's a good reward. I honestly think it's a good reward for good coaching and good smart play by the Hurricanes. Absolutely. I don't see it any different to it being from a scrum penalty, for example, where they saw the opportunity and they took it. And I have to be honest anyway, because I was at that game. It was 17-all after Mackenzie kicked penalty with 8 minutes to go, and the rest of the 8 minutes, the Chiefs didn't touch the ball. They didn't touch the ball at all. The Hurricanes worked their way into the half, like I said, manufactured a penalty, kicked the goal, and then managed the rest of the game. The Chiefs did not touch the ball after they'd drawn level, and that to me suggests that say he hadn't made that penalty, that call at the ruck, it would have come anyway. It probably would have given Cameron an easier kick to win the game. So if as long as the Hurricanes can keep their head in situations like that, because there are going to be some sort of crucial situations, hopefully not in the 80th minute again, then I can see them win this game.
The interesting thing here, Harry, Jamie mentions kicking. The Hurricanes and the Blues, as a goal-kicking team, are way down.
Yeah.
And they're coming up against 2 teams in the Brumbies and the Chiefs that are right at the top in terms of.
To me, it's the only thing that keeps them from being the top of the world. I think they're, the general play is better than Toulouse and Leinster. But it's that the little things, the kicking, which is a big thing in knockout rugby. I think that if both teams play their best, Hurricanes win. I think Chiefs got to need a little more magic. You got to have a couple of things go their way. TJ Perenara has to lose his rag or something, and he just looks like he's in control. I can see TJ Perenara running this match. I don't know.
Yeah, I can too. A quick one to finish, Jamie. If there is going to be an upset this weekend, where does it come?
I think it's the Brumbies. I think that if they can just get on top of the Blues at set piece, which I think they're capable. If they can play the way they did against the Hurricanes, when they beat them, and if the Blues don't play as well as they can be, and like Harry said, don't be as direct and have the tempo of the game taken away from them, I can see the Brumbies winning this game.
It feels like they're due for a Blues performance, a real proper Blues performance. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out, mate. It's been great to catch up again, as always. We enjoy your social media muckraking. We certainly enjoy your writing as well for Radio New Zealand and all that.
I love the distance between that, by the way. I love how literate and erudite and measured his writing is.
Absolutely.
Like he's like, let me throw some shit against the wall.
He stirs the pot, but Jamie is genuinely a really, really good sports writer in his own right. So do go and check his work out, particularly for Radio New Zealand. Good to talk to you, mate. We will do this again at some point in the year, I'm sure.
Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate the time, and thanks for those kind words.
Cheers, Jamie. Paused. Going.
Yep. This is the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones. And, mate, fantastic to have Jamie Wall back on the pod. It's always a great chat.
Always good. Always ready. Loaded for bear, man. I do think that first round wasn't really like playoff-y, but this got me all excited about the real playoffs, the semifinals. Yeah. But I think really this is where it really comes down to 4 really excellent teams, but different. Wait to see it.
And as I mentioned last week, they have been the top 4 teams since about round 5.
Yeah, there was a brief time where the Reds kind of tried.
The Reds and the Chiefs did that for a couple of weeks, but the top 3 have been the top 3 forever.
And I think that was a good win, the Chiefs or the Reds, because the Reds didn't go away. They were in the hunt. There were just these moments. So now I think you have 4 teams where I actually think maybe the Chiefs would have a better shot at the upset. That's my opinion.
Well, Brumbies fans now Chiefs fans this week, because Chiefs win and Brumbies win means the finals in Canberra in 2 weeks' time. So that would be fantastic. We've done Super Rugby pretty well this week, so we'll leave that there. But we will head around the other grounds and touch on the major talking points from the rugby weekend this weekend. The Premiership Final, Northampton 25 beat Bath 21 at Twickenham. And I mean, it was just, there were so many highlights in that second half, and even you could narrow it down into the last 20 minutes of the second half, where Northampton scored that try through the replacement who was man of the match and who said, "Oh shit, man of the match, you serious?"
The ginger man, the ginger guy.
Yeah. And he was good. I didn't know that he was best on the field, but he was very good. And he was so influential in that Northampton try. But then Bath hit back. And then Finn Russell kicks that 50-22. And he'd already had a crack at that, 25 seconds before that. Then he kicked that one. And they get that big, deep line-out drive. And they fluffed the throw. It was like, oh, how many bloody how many curveballs is this going to have? And even to the very end,
Alex Mitchell doing kind of the worst possible tap and go. That you felt like that lost the game, and then he immediately came back with an amazing play. It had a lot of twists and turns. Yeah, I agree with you. That was a really entertaining game to watch as a neutral. I didn't care one way or the other. I kind of wanted Bath to win in the end because of Tank Toy and Johan van Gaan, but I didn't really care in the end. It was great.
Yeah, and in the end, I mean, the scenes around, Courtney Laws and Lewis Ludlam, and there was 3 or 4 guys who had been at Northampton since they were teenagers, to go out with a premiership for all of them. I mean, that's actually pretty cool.
Courtney Laws coming to the press conference, shirt off, goggles on.
Yeah, straight from the celebrations. Yeah, that was good. Bath, you suspect, are going to be there or thereabouts for the next few years yet.
Yeah, good signings, good recruits, stable.
Yep, absolutely. Quarterfinals of the United Rugby Championship were run and won on the weekend. Munster beat Ospreys 23-8 in Limerick on Friday night. The Bulls beat Benetton 30-23 in Pretoria on Saturday. So I've only been able to watch highlights of all these, but that was a really entertaining game from what I could tell. Twice Benetton came back at the Bulls and were within 2 points or 3 points. in that second half before the Bulls kicked out again.
Yeah, the Bulls are missing Marcel Coetzee and Marco van Staden in the pack. They're missing Kanan Moody, and Curtly Arnson went down in the match, and it just seemed to affect them. They were running away with it, and suddenly the whole thing changed. Benetton was really skillful, good coaching. Yeah, for sure. But so for me, and you'll go on to the other games, but to me, the teams that knew who they were in knockout matches win, and the ones that are still trying to figure out what they are. Really
Lost. Yeah. So Leinster 43 beat Ulster 20 at the Aviva on Saturday, and I was confused about this when I was watching the replay because I actually went in with a preconception based off what I'd seen on Twitter and all that Ulster won. So I'm watching this highlight further and further. I'm going, well, when are they coming back? Like, there's only 15 minutes on this clock to go. Like, when? That was wrong.
So hammered down, and they just did what they did.
Yeah, did what they had to do, and they actually looked pretty good doing it. You mentioned James Lowe getting a tap on kick ahead too, and he looked pretty good. And then Glasgow 27 beat the Stormers 10. Do we need to revisit words from last week, or just pretend last week's conversation didn't?
It was very windy, and one team really knew how to play in the wind and did it. And that's the thing. Knockout rugby, windy, rainy. There's just a certain way to play. Yeah, everything was chased. You had 3 team chasing. Every kick was chased so well by Glasgow. They had the effort stats. Stormers were just kind of, like I said, in between styles. Kind of all season. It was just feel like, what are we doing here? Are we playing hero ball? Are we playing, set?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what it was.
What are we doing?
It was time to X out that season and move on.
Yeah. So Munster will host Glasgow in one semi. The Bulls will host Leinster in the second semi, and we will talk about those semis and everything else happening this weekend in games of the week later in the week. Last round of the top 14 in France. Toulon lost their chance to go into the top 2. They went down to Stade Francais 23-20. But they also ended up fourth because Bordeaux beat Yona 40 points to 7, which then meant Bordeaux went ahead of Toulon on head-to-head rankings. So it means now the qualifying finals next weekend has Toulon playing La Rochelle, that's 4th against 5th. Bordeaux will host Racing 92, that's 3rd against 6th. And then awaiting those 2 teams are Toulouse and Stade, who finished 1st and 2nd, and then Grenoble.
I like that format for the Super
Rugby. And that's the format that Super Rugby will end up with next year with 11 teams. It'll go back to a 6-team competition, I'm quite sure. The promotion relegation game in France, Grenoble will play Montpellier on Sunday.
Did you see Sam Whitelock with the final touch of his entire professional rugby career scoring a try? Ridiculous.
I did not see that for Paul.
Yeah, like the final act of his playing career is him
was to score a try,
smashing it over from close range, scoring. What a guy! What a man!
At some point in his retirement, and I actually hope it happens early, is he just going to fail at something, and he's going to find out what it's like?
Right now, he's saying, "Oh, I left the Crusaders, and look what happened when I left." Just a guy with a magic touch.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and Yona obviously will be relegated down to the Pro Tour. Major League Rugby as well, just to wrap it all up. New England are now 7 points clear in the Eastern Conference after their 31-30 win over Old Glory. The goddamn Houston Sabercats are 12 points clear in West after their 29-12 win over RFC LA. Still 3 rounds to play there in the States. So, don't miss our end of week show, Games of the Week, where we go through all the comps around the world and pull out all the matches that we think you should watch this weekend. That's another reason for you to like, follow, subscribe, and make sure you don't miss an episode as soon as it drops. Some news of the last 7 days to finish, mate. The Queensland Reds re-signed last week Lock Ryan Smith and outside back Josh Fluke for another year, I think it was. Honda Heat in Japan, having stayed up in the top division, quickly re-signed their international trio of Franco Mostert, Pablo Matera, Tom Banks. So they'll be continuing around there. We've mentioned Artie Savia has been welcomed back by the Hurricanes. There was a few reports going around that he was entertaining another season in Japan, but that was quickly shut down by the Hurricanes and New Zealand Rugby. NZR and the Crusaders have extended the contracts of Scott Barrett and Cody Taylor through till 2027. But Akira Ioane revealed after the Blues win over the Drua that he's heading to Japan at the end of this year as well. So that's a bit of I think that might be a bit of a hole for the Blues. They don't quite have the back row stocks that, say, the Hurricanes do, but maybe that opens the door for a bit of a sideways move. As we mentioned, Super Rugby Pacific will move to a 16 Super Rugby Finals format next year. The Sydney Morning Herald reported that on Thursday. Proposed structures talking about a 19-week season with 2 buys for each team, 7 home, 7 away games per team. So I think that's adding 1 more week to the year than what we've got currently. That same report, though, said Rugby Australia had to clarify its stance on a national club competition, however, after a sponsorship announcement with Gallagher Insurance had mentioned a national club competition alongside the Wallabies, Wallaroos, Super Rugby W, and underage competitions. And this was all interpreted, is there going to be some sort of national club comp, some third tier this year? Rugby Australia quickly had to say, no, there won't be anything this year. This is Gallagher saying they want to be involved in any future third tier competition. So that was sort of like, whoa, cool the jets, people.
It was the marketing intern, I think.
Yeah, it was. I saw it and I thought, that's curious that's there. Obviously, I knew that there was nothing this year, but yeah, I thought it was curious there. The Telegraph in the UK reported on Thursday that Qatar is closing in on this £800 million deal to host Rugby's Nation Championships finals for 8 years. They've entered into a 2-month exclusivity period with Six Nations Inc. and with Sanzar for discussions. There's plans still for this biennial 6-match Super Bowl type series in Doha. We'll see how we go there. The Lions, we talked about before. Lions fans have snapped up Australian tour packages in record numbers. Already more than 10,000 sold in just 4 months, which is twice the number from the entire 2013 tour to Australia. And I said back in a RugbyPass column of mine back in March that RA will be banking on tens of thousands of British and Irish tours making the trip, and that's proved to be the case. So that's going to be huge next year, no doubt. All the games are completely sold out already, I think. So that's that. And the last bit is that George Ford has been told not to travel to Japan and Australia for England's tour due to an Achilles injury. He's been told to take some time away from the game and rest up. So, yeah, that'll be Marcus Smith.
Big loss.
Yeah, big loss, I think. Final thoughts, mate, before we wrap up episode 18 we're up to.
We in rugby don't have to like where money comes from or extravaganza, but we have to admit that we have a money problem. So we kind of have to, so if we want the money, we have to think about how to get the money. Otherwise, we're going to be beggars and not very choosy. So I think that's the issue there. Fiduciary duty would require people to take 100, 200 million if it's on the table, unless there's something better out there. It's hard. Have you turned down $100 million? Okay, come talk to me when you're.
That's going to be the thing. It's going to be be very easy to say, oh, should we be taking Qatari money? Should we be taking Middle Eastern money? But then straight away the chairs of Scotland and Wales and Australia are going to be saying, we will.
We're right on the edge, guys.
Right. Have you got an alternate source of £100 million for us? Because we certainly do not. Yeah, it's a really good point. But that is episode 18 of the 8-9 Combo done. Do check the show notes for the links to the 8-9 Combo on all the socials. Also on YouTube, where you'll find video versions of the podcast every week. But as we've always said, make sure you give us a like, follow, subscribe, interact with the pod directly, and rate and share wherever you can as well. Harry and I are on those socials in our usual places, and you'll find our written stuff in our usual places there as well. You know where we are by now for sure. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. And we'll be back with Games of the Week later in the week.
Come play with us.